Outer Range episodes 5 and 6 continues a slow descent into madness for our characters. Today, we are going to talk about these two episodes and what is going on with this show. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. At the end of this video, we'll talk about what you all had to say about last week's episodes, but right now, I want to get into episode 5, starting out with right where we left off and the madness that is Wayne, who took that rock, knocked Royal over the side of the head, and is rushing home in this almost chaotic panic, but he's so happy, he's excited, he gets to his doorstep, and he drops. And really, through the next two episodes, Wayne is incapacitated, and the rest of the family is trying to figure out, okay, what the heck are we going to do? There's nothing in his will that states what we are able to do while he is in this state. So everything that happened over this rock essentially creates chaos for the Tillersons, and they don't even know why, the specific reason as to why they wanted the land in the first place. So that entire family, and of course the inclusion of their mother, his wife. But then you have the other side of things. One focal point in episode 5 is Cecilia and how she's noticing the unhinged nature of pretty much everyone around her, but she's also really struggling herself. At the beginning of this episode, she notices that Autumn is coming in for what we perceive to be at first the necklace, and that is indeed the case. And there's a little bit of a strange look on her face, as there is pretty much everyone in this episode. But we're also getting these mannerisms from Cecilia that feel so distinctly different from what we've gotten from her in the other few episodes. Something is changing within these characters internally, and Cecilia is a great example of that. We see a scene a bit later where her Bible group is telling her that she's lost and the congregation is gathered around her, praying for her. You also have this score accompanying all of these moments in the background, and it feels like anytime Cecilia is on screen in this episode, there is this chaotic and almost frantic music that's playing in the background, and she knows that Royal has changed. Autumn has that little discussion with her, and Cecilia understands that there is a difference in Royal, but we're also seeing some changes for her that have me questioning a few things, and I'm still trying to figure out the reasoning behind why each character is going through their specific change. We know what Autumn is searching for that Royal took from her, even though Royal technically won it fair and square, right? But the unhinged nature of everyone has me kind of on edge in episode 5, and I'm thinking to myself, if this is how we're feeling right now, where are we going to be in the final two episodes? So I am questioning the motives behind certain actions, but understandably so, everything that I'm getting is making me feel kind of on edge, and I think that's the intention of the show, even though we're questioning a lot of things right now. And then we come back to Deputy Sheriff Joy and her quest for the truth, her mission to find out who actually killed Trevor, but we understand that she's starting to suspect Perry a bit more so than she did, not only because someone selected Perry out of a crowd, but also because she feels confident in her intuition and the suspicions that arise surrounding really this entire family we've seen through the first 4 episodes, but his character specifically, and she's becoming more confident in what she is finding, and I'm starting to appreciate her character arc just as much as the two families that we're dealing with. She's becoming much more of a prominent character. Great conversation a little bit later, and we'll talk about it. Now we're getting into the really interesting stuff with Royal, and he always seems to be my favorite part of these episodes. He's investigating this stone at this rare earth department, but as he's having this conversation with the doctor, it looks and feels as if she's becoming infatuated with this stone. Something is drawing her to it, and every major character moment that we get when the stone is nearby, it always feels like someone is hypnotized by it, and that's when Royal sees this logo for BY9 Mining. Now, this immediately throws him back into his flashback. We're getting that moment where he's in the hole again, and he notices that there was a logo, very reminiscent to the logo that he's seeing. Clicks in his brain. He says, "Oh my God, I shouldn't be here." You see the infatuation by the person at the counter, and he's like, I have to get out of here. Everyone's after my stuff, losing my mind, chaos. And that's how I'm feeling about the whole show at this point. Everyone is on edge. And I'm just like, guys, hey, let's just calm down and it doesn't happen, but I still felt that way. Then Royal cracks the stone. He's met with another vision and sees his own death, what looks to be his own death. But it looks like Autumn is talking to the one witnessing the vision. It looks like Autumn is talking to him directly. I want to pause really quick and talk about the technical elements of these two episodes, the cinematography, the production design, the score, which is a little too bombastic for me at times. When it picks up, it really picks up. And there were moments where the score almost overshadowed the scene. So I was a little like, I'm not entirely sure. And it may not be as memorable as something like Dark, right? But I am starting to warm up on some of the music cues. Also, the CGI bear looked really, really good. And the creatures in general, and we'll talk more about it, but I just think it's a very well-produced show. Even the hole in the ground, right? Something that simple could look ridiculous and silly, but these two episodes look great. And then we have the way that episode 5 caps off, a quieter episode, a more introspective episode where characters are coming to realizations or slowly going off the deep end, like Cecilia, Royal, Autumn. So now we're picking back up with Royal and Autumn. When Royal picked up Autumn and essentially threw her out into the middle of the night, she's losing it. He's losing it. He leaves her for dead in the wild, and just the shock factor of this. It's like, what is setting him off to this degree? What is the anger showcased and portrayed for Autumn? Where is that coming from, right? We know it's coming from a deep place, and we understand that it is there because of the events that have been progressively growing all throughout the prior 5 episodes, but this feels something else is at play here, and we still don't entirely know what, but what leads Royal to do this, I'm still questioning. I'm like, why such a drastic decision? Leaving this poor woman out to die. And she almost does. So then we see the bear approach Autumn, and we see this CGI bear, one that looks fantastic again, and we hear the words, "show him." Now, we understand what the bear is talking about a bit later on, but just looking at this scene in the here and now, I'm thinking to myself, is the bear speaking? Is something moving through the bear, talking through the bear, trying to put my finger on and understand what exactly is motivating her to do this? We kind of understand the why, right? To open up these possibilities and for more of the family to understand what's going on here. But the who is the question here. Again, the scene is very intense. I love the way that it progressed. But to see her face something like this and then realize that everything she has is destroyed. So she is just lifeless at that point. And the next person she comes across is Billy Tillerson, and she decides, well, show him obviously means that I have to show Billy the hole. What's the exact reasoning behind that? I guess this is the person that she felt like she needed to show. But once Billy sees the hole, he is shocked by this. He goes home, straight home, to tell his father. And in the midst of this, Autumn goes to this hotel room, wherever she was, and performs some sort of ritual where she is taking the Abbott emblem and carving it into her skin. This scene for me was off-putting. The entire moment I felt so standoffish about, but I'm like, what? What is... Did all of the things that Royal just did lead her to do this, or was this part of the plan in the first place? It's interesting. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like, what? Then we go back to the Abbott family, and everything is falling apart here. The intensity between every single person, down to the point to where Amy is starting to question Perry. She's like, okay, listen, I know I'm the youngin' here, don't know what's going on, but something's going on. What is happening? We also have the moment, and I almost forgot about this, Royal going out to look for Cecilia, sees her in this place with the corpse of a baby bear. After inflicting bite marks on her hand from the dead bear's mouth, she sits next to it all ominously, and it's extremely strange, the whole sequence. They're all crumbling. Rhett's relationship with Maria, Perry cannot deal with the fact that there are so many secrets, so he goes to confess, and essentially, by doing that, trying to help the family, puts the family at risk because he feels like he needs to confess. And then we have this huge showdown of sorts between everyone, where everyone is starting to lose it. Poor Amy is caught in the middle and even gets physically harmed in the midst of this altercation. So in a way, I'm with Cecilia here when it comes to this big battle at the end of this episode. Rhett is going off, but Cecilia is sitting there wondering why in the world Perry would do something like this, go and admit this, when the family just took so many drastic measures to protect this entire situation. And while everyone's getting mad at each other, Royal seems to be the last one that snaps, and he slams Perry into this thing where the glass, like I said, falls off and cuts Amy in the forehead. She runs out of the house and sees the police lights in the distance. So we literally end off with the police coming. Joy is probably on her way to arrest Perry, and thus we have the end of our episode, the ends of episodes 5 and 6. Now I want to get into a couple of your comments from last week's video. You guys had some really interesting things to say. Jack Wilson says, I think Autumn is Royal's sister. She doesn't remember her childhood before he ran away. He doesn't recognize her as an adult. The ages are skewed because of the time distortion, but maybe he wore the necklace as a child, and suddenly he's thinking about her for the first time in years. When he tells his son he had a sister as a child, he didn't drop that for no reason. And who else would push you in a big old hole just to see what happens but a sibling, even unconsciously? Those are actually really great points. You can also go back to the picture that Royal had hidden away. It looked like it could have been further back in the past, which would mean maybe he came from further in the past as a child, ended up in that time period where he grew up. Autumn followed him in eventually. The brother-sister concept is something that I didn't even think of. I thought this was a brilliant comment. But then you have Jeff saying, yes, Autumn is an older Amy, and this is the theory that I'm seeing a lot of. I saw it a lot in my first video and my second. Lots of people are on this theory, and it makes a lot of sense. Of course, why wouldn't she just come out and tell them something in the future is crazy and she can't talk about it? Okay, so we have something that's keeping Autumn, and maybe this is why her mind is slowly deteriorating, because she's keeping all of this in, all of these secrets that will inevitably come to light, whether it be this season or not. I'm not sure. But these are a lot of great theories from you all. But after these 2 episodes, we get even more that leads us to believe that Autumn is someone from somewhere that is not of here. And by that, I mean she's not from this time. She comes from the past. Maybe she's an earlier version of Cecilia. Something along those lines that leads us to believe that Autumn, her mind is deteriorating for a very specific reason. I'm curious to find out what. And then we're trying to figure out, what does the scene with the bear mean? Someone else had a great theory in my first video that this family, or both families, they are gods that have descended into human bodies. And I'm like, it's a lot, but then you look at, the bison and the bear and how they're hearing things and voices telling them to do very specific things. So I'm like, I think anything's a possibility at this point, but we're going to come back next week and talk about the next 2 episodes, which are the final 2 episodes. Hopefully we can get some of these answers and we don't get this major cliffhanger, even though I think we are going to get a major cliffhanger leading off into a season 2. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate all the love and support on these videos. If you're still here and you'd like to drop that like button, it really does help these videos, so I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.